My name's Adam Penford, and I am the director of Punch.
And hi, I'm James Graham, and I'm the writer of Punch.
The project came about because I heard a podcast that Jacob Dunn did, and it was set in Nottingham, and it was the most powerful, moving story about Jacob's life and this moment in his life. I reached out to Jacob. He always says that I slid into his DMs on socials and said, I'm the artistic director of Nottingham Playhouse. I've heard your podcast. The story's amazing. I think it could make a good play. Would you be interested in talking about that? But he'd been to the Playhouse before. He'd seen Panto, and we got talking, and eventually we thought it would be a good idea, and we would base it on a book he'd written. And then we had to decide who to write it. So I said, well, the person who I think should write it is a writer called James Graham. He's from Nottingham. He writes these amazing stories which are both intimate and personal, but also state of the nation. But I have to warn you, he's incredibly busy. So trying to get his attention is going to be hard. But I managed to get you up to Nottingham.
Well, we met and talked about it, and I love the Playhouse. It's my local theatre growing up, and I'm always now searching for stories that come from that world, the Red Wall and the East Midlands. And this is I was so surprised at how beautiful and how heartbreaking and moving the story was, given that it's a story set in the criminal justice system. It's about a lot of things people are talking about at the moment, male violence, male relationships, and yet it has this incredibly beautiful, inspiring, heartwarming, hopeful twist where people are the best versions of themselves. And I felt like I couldn't basically not try and tell it. I've done a few sort of real life stories on stage and screen before, but this felt almost entirely unique in the sense that often I've written stories about sort of public figures like Rupert Murdoch or Dominic Cummings, and I think there's a level of expectation from those kinds of figures that their impact on the country is going to be at some point analysed and maybe turned into art or comedy or satire. This felt like a hugely private story to the people involved who had gone through this huge amount of pain, both Jacob, the offender who'd caused the harm, and then the people he'd caused harm to, the parents, the victims, family. So that meant me working incredibly closely with Jacob, whose story it is, but also who was translating his story into a memoir, a book. And we'd physically spend just lots and lots of time together. It wasn't a case of me sort of writing something, emailing it off and saying, send me notes. We had to be together. We had to be in that environment, in the environment of the Meadows in Nottingham, the estate which he was from. We had to be around people in restorative justice.
James had originally sent through 8 to 10 pages at the beginning, and I started working with the amazing set designer Anna, and we did a lot of research about the Meadows area of Nottingham, and we went on a trip actually with Anna and with Jacob. He showed us around his home and where he grew up. And then I also cast it just on those few pages, which essentially then meant that James was kind of writing the rest of the script with the set design and with our actual cast in mind.
The themes of the play are all about asking questions as a group and trusting each other and vulnerability and getting into a space and looking each other in the eye. That's literally the climax of the story. That collective nature of collaborating felt right to infuse it through the process of making the show as well.
So the play started at Nottingham Playhouse, and it got an amazing response from that audience. We were very conscious, though, that we were playing to a home crowd, that they understood those people, those references to the city. And we were aware that when it transferred down to London, that audience wouldn't automatically maybe have ever been to Nottingham or not know those specific street names or pub names. But we've always felt that by making something incredibly specific, that will also make it universal, make it global. So when we transferred to the Young Vic, we discovered that our instincts were correct, and actually the audience in London responds just as strongly to the play as a Nottingham audience did.
I'm so excited by the West End. I'm biased as a playwright, but I think the West End should have new plays in it. We're so lucky in this country and in London in particular to have a host of musicals and everything, but things that are based on movies and books, but new plays I think deserve to have that kind of commercial life, and the audiences are sort of a big popular mixed bag of people who are tourists and locals, and I feel so lucky that I've been able to write plays with subject matters that try to reach beyond the traditional theatre goer, but don't alienate the traditional theatre goer. But you do get the universal human themes of this show. It's a show about forgiveness. It's a show about hope. It's a show about love and learning to love yourself and love other people, and it's a show about change. And I feel like people leaving a West End theatre into the London night will hopefully have seen a play that is about modern society, but also not been burdened by it. There's a release, I think, when people see this real life story. We don't necessarily have a particular agenda. We think that there are challenges in modern British society, in the criminal justice system, in prisons, and how we treat young men and how young men treat each other. We've been so blessed to be trusted with this real life story that is just really beautiful. It's extraordinary what these real people, the journey they go on. A guy who killed somebody on a night out, and how the parents of that boy he killed go on a journey with him to understand what happened. And it's very beautiful, and they all change, and the world around them changes, and it's just I find it so moving. And it's also sort of unapologetically entertaining. We've got music and like really, I think, great sort of 2010s kind of going out down Nottingham kind of vibes to it, and there's lights and music and dancing, and it's got a real pulsing, throbbing energy to it. And then with this gorgeous cast who've been with us for the very beginning, and feel in their absolute heart and their absolute bones the importance of the beauty of this story.
Act 1 has this real energy to it. It's the energy that the character of Jacob had as a youth, this restlessness. He's racing around the city, kind of partying, meeting girls, doing drugs, getting into crime. And that's sort of juxtaposed with these beautiful scenes with Joan and David, who are the parents of James, the young man who was tragically killed. In Act 2, the whole thing settles down as Jacob kind of matures emotionally, and this is completely down to James Graham's amazing writing. The script kind of settles, and he matures, and he finds a language. He finds a way of connecting to his feelings and emotions and being able to explain those to other people. And then it culminates in this 10th hour scene, which is this 12-minute long scene where Jacob and Joan and David meet each other in person for the first time.
There are these questions and anxieties in the country right now, obviously, about what it is to be young and post-COVID, this generation, what they're going through, and particularly regarding to young men and male relationships and online and face-to-face. There's a lot of pain and a lot of struggle and a lot of questions. And what feels remarkable to me about this story that we've inherited and been entrusted in is it does take a young man who's engaged in violence, who feels lost, who feels angry, whose relationships aren't healthy, and he does something really tragic and really brutal and horrible, and then goes on a journey out of that. And I feel like what audiences are taking with them from this is the power that people can change and learn lessons, and things don't have to always be the same. And it feels the paralysis I think we've all felt in society the past decade. This is someone where systems start to work for him, and he's empowered to change his life. And you can feel how moved young people are, but you can feel how relieved older people are, parents or anyone, caregivers, who see in this story just a real hope. And it is a story essentially about the power of forgiveness.
I've had emails from parents who came to watch the play and then came back bringing their teenage child, both male and female, because they're worried about the path that their child is taking. The message of the play was so important to them that they wanted their young person to receive that, but they also knew that the play is so entertaining and funny and vibrant that the young person would engage with it and listen and enjoy it as well.
I firmly believe that theatre is almost the last remaining space that we have to obviously get people together in physical proximity, so they're not just watching incredible dramas online, but alone in their rooms on their phone, not together. The physical proximity of theatre still means that you as a community, a physical community, experience something in real time as your heart starts to beat simultaneously through a story. And I know certainly with Punch, when you try to explain it to people, explain that this horrible thing happened to this family and they went on this remarkable journey of impossible generosity to the person who harmed them and get to a beautiful outcome. People get it, but they don't. They ask themselves, could I go on that journey?
The fact that what our amazing cast managed to achieve live, and the fact that you're watching that live every night, it's a marathon. They all play so many different characters and switch characters so quickly. And then David Shields, who plays Jacob, has to go on this huge emotional journey and arc. And I think people are just aware that they have been a part of that in the room.
If I was a mother, a father, a brother of someone who took someone from me, could I imagine that capacity? And you have to sit there for 2 hours in a play with beautiful actors walking you through it. I think to imagine and comprehend it, and that's the power of story, but particularly a story in a live space with the community, talking about the power of being together.